What brought this about was the rate structure we felt was not fair. As you know, there was cross-subsidization with members using all the way from 0 to 1,000,000 kilowatts per month. It's just about impossible to establish a facilities charge and a rate charge that would be fair to everybody.
And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, are these issues of rising costs, assigning costs, and ultimately recovering costs. But when it comes to rising costs, one of the key points that we want to make sure that members are aware of is this whole concept of controlling costs. And we've worked hard to do that. We've had only one local rate increase since 2007. Only one local rate increase. What happens is there's rate pressures on this side for each of you, and there's wholesale power cost pressures on this side, you know, with these cost increases, and then ultimately who's caught in the middle? Your local electric co-op. And what we're here tonight to talk about is this whole concept of, again, rates and costs and the balancing act, and ultimately making sure that we're not really sacrificing the long-term integrity of the system, your local electric distribution system, because of these short-term pressures that we're feeling on both sides of the equation.
We have to chart a new course. We got to lay some seed here, and we have to make sure that we can be as fair as possible, and we can receive compensation for the cost of doing service to the consumer.
I think the big challenge is being fair, as fair as we can be to all the members, regardless of what we do. We can't make it equally fair to everybody.
And our purpose, really, in the 75 years that we've been here, has not changed. We still serve, as an electric cooperative, in a rural area, the areas that nobody else really does want to serve, because, again, it comes down to one concept, one point, sheer numbers. There's just not a lot of volume along that mile of line. If this section of line here were to represent 1 mile of line, and if we were a utility that served a community like Duluth, there may be 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 people along this section of line to help offset the cost for this section of line. In a rural utility, in Lake Country Power, for example, we average 6. So we have to spread that cost among 6 people, whereas if we were serving a larger area with more volume, with higher numbers, we'd be able to spread those costs a lot easier among a lot more people.
And what we're trying to do is say, what's fair? You know, we have a number of bills. I believe the number is in the excess of 50,000, where there is not any kilowatts sold over a 12-month period. And we've tried to put together a fair way to get power to the meter and maintain lines.
The facility charge, the actual cost per member for each service is about $42 a month. That covers the maintenance of our distribution system.
Ultimately, out of every dollar that you pay, 55 cents goes to the cost of wholesale power, okay, that front end of the equation. And then from there, from the red section over, is really kind of the local component of your costs then for your local electric co-op. And that includes everything from labor to interest expense to depreciation, all the way through even to operating margins, so that we can make sure, even though we're a non-profit or not-for-profit electric co-op, we still have an obligation from the federal government, from the Rural Utilities Service, the old REA, they're now called the RUS, and they require us to make a margin so that we can continue to maintain a viable and reliable electric co-op for the consumers that we serve in rural areas.
From the beginning, you know, it was a challenge to say, which direction do we go? And we spent, I think, the better part of 6.5 months looking at different scenarios that staff had put together for us at our request, and taking their suggestions.
Well, this is the decision that we're going to make as a result of the members' vote on before the annual meeting. As you know, we're going to have a ballot with 3 choices for the members. They're going to make their choices, and the board is going to look at these choices, and we're going to make our decision.
Well, the board of directors ultimately has the responsibility through the Articles of Incorporation to set rates and to recover revenues that are going to make sure that you all have safe and reliable electric service as part of your electric co-op. But they're also very cognizant of the fact that in a member-owned organization, members have a voice, members have a vote. Every 3 years, each director is up for election in an electric co-op. And so ultimately, as we talked about before, we're not for profit, but we are required to make a margin. And the board is also legally required to make sure that you have safe and reliable electric service. That is their number one responsibility, is to make sure that the system maintains its viability, its reliability, and its integrity so that you have safe and reliable electric service in the countryside.
I think my facility charge on the telephone is $35 a month or whatever it is. My internet service is, I think it's $50 a month. And that's a facility charge. We go on and on and on. I mean, we accept them for some reason, and we don't accept the facility charge for receiving electricity. I don't know why it's considered a different scenario. I think it's to me, I think electricity is more important than the satellite TV, and we can get along without that. But it's kind of nice to come home at night and turn the switch and the lights come on.
There's two factors that drive why we would need to replace line. One is the wire. The wire gets old, it gets overloaded, and the other is poles. And I'd like to show you a few samples here of what I'm talking about. Now this graph right here is all 8,200 miles of line that we have on the system. And what you see in red is what we've identified that needs to be replaced over the next 20 years. It's 2,500 miles of line. This is number 8A. This is the earliest stuff we put in. We have about 1,100 miles of this on the system. This was put in as primary line back when we only had a few lights in each house, and it was adequate at that time. But now it's end of life. It's causing loading problems for the members. This is what we put up today for primary. This is what we'd put up for three-phase to serve the loads of today going forward. So quite a difference between what we have and what we need to go to.
The fact is, there's not just a one-time cost for that equipment. Again, it ages over time. And so as Derek outlined, we have to replace some of it. And there's a cost associated with that. There was a cost yesterday, there's a cost today, and there will be a cost tomorrow for that equipment. And some of it is fixed, some of it is variable.
The board members are going to have to take the action, address the problem, correct it, and that's the only way we're going to solve it. If we lower the facility charge, we're going to have to raise the energy charge to pay for that maintenance that we do each year or each day. That cost is not going to go away. It's there. It's a fixed cost, and it's we have to address it, and we have to contend with it.
It's the cleanest way, and everybody has to pay their fair share. What it costs you to get power to that meter, and what you use after that is going to be all in the cost of utility charges, or excuse me, kilowatt charges.
Here's what's going to be happening here in the next few months. The board has passed a resolution, and it's targeted toward the annual meeting, which is June 9th at Cromwell High School this year. And they are going to be asking each of you to provide your perspective very directly to them through an advisory vote process. In a member-owned co-op, where members' economic participation is a core principle of how we're to operate, we're asking you very directly to provide guidance.
In my District 9, I'm going to encourage people to support the $42. The exhibits clearly illustrate, and when you get a chance to go to your focus group meeting, it clearly illustrates that it is fairness at its best.
Any of the scenarios that you're going to see here are what we call revenue neutral. We know that we need to recover additional revenues this year, up to $1.5 million. And so any of the scenarios return that to the co-op. So it's a question of, again, you have an opportunity to weigh in on how you think the co-op should recover those revenues.
If we go to $42 a month, we're going to lower the energy charge. So the high-end users are going to benefit from the higher facility charge. And likewise, and in turn, the low-end users are going to be paying their fair share of the maintenance cost of a distribution system.
Let's give three options. And when we gave the three options, this is what we came up with, was the 42, the 32, and then the 37, or 2750, excuse me. I'm confident we're on the right track, and going forward in the future, we can clearly illustrate our cost and be accountable for them.